review what could be the cause of tinnitus, how there are different philosophies and strategies to help minimize tinnitus, reduce it, if not eliminate it, and giving you worksheets and tips and tricks and apps, reminders on how you can start today to reduce your tinnitus. So our office, as you may or may not know, is here in Oak Brook, Illinois. We're in the western suburbs of Chicago. I know a lot of people around the country and the world have attended this. So if you're from someplace outside of Chicago, welcome. There is a chat on the side. I cannot see you, but you can see me. And if you have questions, you can just type it into the chat. If you wanted to discuss offline on a different day or time, I am more than happy to talk to you about anything that I've covered. So our office is not just myself, it's also Dr. Emily Johnson and Dr. Stephanie Michaelides. And then we also have Lindsay Doherty, who is a hearing instrument specialist, and two audiology assistants, Brooklyn and Abby, that help us to help you. So let's get into this. We have an overview right here, an outline of what I'll be reviewing. The goal is to educate you more so that you have a better understanding of your condition and also have strategies for your good and bad days, or even just change the way that you are viewing your tinnitus and giving you a roadmap to reduce it if it is at any time feeling bothersome or severe. So by definition, tinnitus is anything that you're hearing that the rest of us are not. It's within your head, like literally, or in your neck. You're hearing clicking, you could be hearing ringing, you could change your head and you get a different output. It's something that lasts more than 5 minutes. It could be 5 seconds, and it could be a ringing or something, and that is likely not what we would call tinnitus. It's eustachian tube dysfunction possibly, or it's something, a click, it could be TMJ, but it's not considered tinnitus unless it's something that lasts longer than 5 minutes. Also, it's not a disease. It's a symptom of something. You heard something in your body. You heard blood beating, like a pulse. You heard some crunching of your neck as you moved your head, or maybe your ear has changed and you're hearing the ringing. It could be a windy sound. No matter what it is, if it is interfering with your life, it's getting in the way of having conversations and noise or quiet, it's interrupting your sleep, you're having struggles just to concentrate while reading, then you're in the right place. You're not alone. Unfortunately, it's pretty common to have tinnitus, or you can say tinnitus, sounds that you're hearing. 750 million people worldwide are hearing tinnitus, and that's 15% of all adult Americans. 120 million see it as a major problem. We'll call that bothersome. That's 2 million Americans. So you're in good company. What would not be good is if you have met a provider, a doctor, nurse practitioner, somebody that said, yep, you're just going to have to learn to live with it. We've met too many people that were told, here's a pamphlet, get used to it, it's only going to get worse, join the club. That's not the answer. The answer is send them to someone like us who can help educate, because we've had the training on this. So my goal with this is to make it so that it's not interrupting your day, reduce your emotional response, and reduce that attention that you have for this sound. And it doesn't matter what you're hearing. Many people hear different sounds. It could be buzzing, hissing, roaring, static. It could sound like the cicadas. Whatever you hear there's not like a particular sound that predisposes you to not have success with our programs. You can find relief no matter what it is that you're hearing. Tinnitus can change in volume and pitch and sound depending on some other factors. If you have a lot of alcohol one evening, let's say, your ears could ring more. If you were just at a concert, if you have an ear infection or excessive wax that just closed off your ear canal, your tinnitus can change. It can get louder or change pitch. If you're on certain medications, the side effect could be tinnitus, and it can make it louder or worse. Hypertension, diuretics like Lasix that are helping keep your body free of the extra bad fluid can cause ringing of the ears. It can change even your balance or your hearing. Depression, anxiety, you have a stressful event in your life right now, can change it. So just so you know, if you're going to go out with friends, let's say, and you're like, oh, maybe I don't want to drink, you can drink. Just set yourself up, and I'm going to go through this in this presentation about how you can set yourself up for success. You could tell your partner, hey, by the way, my ears might be ringing more tonight, so let's set up the bedroom so I have my noise masker, and I'm going to go be present with my friends and have fun, but I know my tinnitus might be louder, but it'll get better by tomorrow. Hydrate. If you're on a medication, by the way, and if that medication has changed your tinnitus, I don't want you to stop taking it. I want you to have a conversation with the provider who prescribed the medication. Have a conversation. Maybe your weight has changed. Have them reweigh you, make sure that the dosage is correct, or just know that you can rely on someone like me to help you with the tinnitus, because maybe the Lasix or the chemotherapy is helping your body to maintain what it's maintaining and stay alive, as opposed to ignoring the tinnitus. I want you to talk to all of us about what's happening. Don't stop taking your medication if you feel like that is the reason. So tinnitus is, by another definition, the perception of sound in the absence of an external sound source. So there was a study that was done in the 1950s where they asked people to please come into a sound booth. This was actually an anechoic chamber. There are very few of them in the United States. And so there is no sound within this chamber, and they were asked to sit there for a couple of minutes, and then they were brought back out. And this was a significant study because even though there were no instructions given to people, 97% of them remarked how they heard something. They heard sounds within their whole body. It is normal for us and our ears to send signals up to our brain all day long and hear some sounds. But sometimes there's changes in that sound, and we're alerted to it. It could be a change in your hearing. There could have been noise exposure, and then your ears start ringing. You think about those movies where suddenly there's an explosion and you hear the ee. Ototoxic medications, like I said, impacted wax, all that stuff we talked about. If there's a change in what you hear, you might be alerted to it, and we will call that tinnitus. So let's do a brief overview of the anatomy and physiology of the ear. The ear has three parts to it, and the outer ear sends that acoustic signal into the eardrum. The eardrum starts to vibrate, and there's three little bones, and that becomes a mechanical system where it's vibrating the sound in. Then we get to the inner ear, and there is a cochlea that is fluid-filled little conch shell with microscopic hair cells, and they bend with the pitch of whatever the sounds are. When they bend, those hair cells are connected to a nerve that sends the signal to the temporal lobe of the brain. And by the way, the auditory pathway includes the brainstem. But look at this picture, remember it for later. This is a normal auditory pathway from each ear. So again, outer ear, we're checking for wax. Sometimes that causes an increase in tinnitus. The middle and inner ear are important for getting the signal inside. And if we get to that very, very inner ear, we have a cochlea and we have a balance system called the vestibular system. The cochlea is the organ of hearing, and that's where these microscopic hair cells are lining this, kind of like a cinnamon bun, right? Lining the inner ear in the same order as a piano. And all night long, all day long, no matter what, we always have this transfer of information up to our brain. And if everything is good and clean and easy, we don't even realize, because since before we were even born, our ears are wired to our brains, and we just kind of hear, they say, like this hum, right? So let's say you, here's an example of if something changes. Let's say you have an 8-year-old niece, and she has been practicing playing the piano, and she's practicing playing hot cross buns, right? And she wants to give a little performance for the whole family. So everyone comes into the living room, she's at the piano, and she starts to play, do, do, and then her fingers hit an F sharp, and it was supposed to be just an F and then a G, and she's like, and everyone physically moves. You're like, oh, because as she's playing, you hear that, and you're like, oh, that's not what I expected, and it kind of moved me, right? If your inner ear has hair cells that suddenly break, you can be alerted to that change in, it's no longer a hum, maybe it's a ring, maybe it's a different kind of static, it's different, and we're going, what on earth is that? Here is a microscopic photo of the inner and outer hair cells. There are 3 rows of outer hair cells and 1 row of inner hair cells. And normally they set themselves up as these beautiful little V's, and everything looks real nice and pretty. This is not normal, what we're looking at. You can see there's like, it's kind of like the battlefield, and all of the men are kind of broken and falling down. Your hair cells are not lined up nicely here. They've broken, some of them are sheared off, and you're wondering, like, what happened? Was this acoustic trauma? Was this a medication that did it? But if this suddenly happens to your inner ear, and that signal that's going to your brain is picking up on the fact that there's a distortion now, it's not like it used to be. Or maybe like they have changed so much that you're not picking up environmental sounds, you're just hearing those little hair cells rubbing on each other, because they're not nice and sitting next to each other, they're actually kind of broken, and they're creating their own little hum and buzz. So that auditory pathway suddenly can send a weird signal. Now, tinnitus is like I said, it can be normal. I have it. I sometimes hear it. Sometimes it bothers me. Sometimes it doesn't. You're here if it has affected your quality of life. And I can tell you that we can make it so that it's no longer inhibiting you from doing what you love. But Dr. Jennifer Gans is a psychologist, and she describes tinnitus, bothersome tinnitus, as an occurrence that happens with the perfect storm, in a sense. When at a time when you maybe had a heightened sense of emotion, you're already upset about something, some event in your life happened, and you suddenly hear a sound that is unknown to you. And you're like, that's weird. And because it's so new and you can't relate it to anything that you've ever heard before, there's no reason for it, you give it more importance than you normally would have. And our brain is really good at trying to take in all the senses and try to figure out, make sense of everything. And when it cannot make sense of it, the brain gives it a lot of attention. It's like, red alert, what's happening? When we react to a sound that we are not familiar with, or if we already have a heightened sense of emotion because someone in our family has died, or work is extra stressful, or it's just literally something that came out of the blue, and it's in the middle of the night when it first happened, your autonomic nervous system can turn on super quick. Fight or flight system, it involves the amygdala, which is deep within our brain, which is connected to all these other parts of our body that make us go into panic mode. And doctors Paul Jasterboff and Margaret Jasterboff are husband and wife, but they've done a lot of research in tinnitus and tinnitus treatments, and following and understanding like more about this. And I've learned from them about how there is this neurophysiologic model of tinnitus. Basically, whenever you hear the sound, it goes up the auditory pathway, but instead of just going to the temporal lobe, it's stopping in with the limbic system, the fight or flight system. And when that gets turned on, and then you listen for the sound again and you hear it, the more that the emotion centers are connected, the more that sound is actually heightened. It's compounded, it gets louder. The more you hear it, the more annoyed you become, the more annoyed you become, the more you listen for it. And we have this negative cycle that we need to, quite frankly, break. We don't want to check in with our emotion centers every time you hear a sound. See the difference? We got to get rid of that middle part. That is your limbic system. That's bothersome. And if you see, this is a cross section of the head, and we open up, we can see inside here, the pink centers of the brain are what light up on neuroimaging studies of people with active bothersome tinnitus. You're not making this up. This is definitely something that can be monitored. And the more you know today, the easier it will be for you to understand it and move forward and bring this reaction down. So I'm going to go over some terms, and I'm going to teach you about how it's possible to make it so that that limbic system does not turn on every time you hear your tinnitus. So as humans, any actual being can learn to reduce the reaction to, even just basic cells can learn to reaction to something over time. So there's pattern detection, and as a human, and I have an example of a lifeguard here, because I was a lifeguard on the beach in college. And by the way, little known fact, at Walt Disney World, I was the deep water lifeguard. Yeah, the first day of work, you get there and you're like, oh my gosh, let's say at the beach, right? You're like, holy cow, I'm going to sit up straight. I'm nervous. This is new to me. Someone could die, you know, and you're watching, you're like, there's a toddler, there's a whatever. Oh my gosh. Like, you're just, all these things go through your mind. And it is not healthy or normal to stay in a heightened sense of fear, you know. And when you're first hearing your tinnitus, you might be in this heightened sense of fear, but the more that you're around it and things are, the more, if you ever guys have ever gone to the beach and you see these lifeguards, they look like they're half asleep. I mean, they could be if they've got sunglasses on, but then you see them move a little bit, you know, and they might have a whistle and it's maybe on their mouth or whatever, and then they only beep beep, they do a little chirp or to alert someone else, or they stand up and they check out things only after checking what they're looking at for a while, and they have an idea of what's normal, but then they might be triggered by something that makes them sit up straight, grab their can, as they call it, you know, and jump off and go into the water to go get someone, right? So with our tinnitus or not tinnitus, we're hearing a lot and then suddenly something's new, we're alerted to it. If you have tinnitus, the more you hear it, gradually you can learn to realize that it's always there and it's no longer novel. It's not new anymore. Our neural pathways can be changed. The neurophysiologic systems can be modified. It's called neuroplasticity. And at any age, we can change the way that our brain is responding to things. And we can do this at the conscious and the unconscious. I'm sorry, well, unconscious, sure, while you're sleeping, but also subconscious levels, right? We can change your response. So another term is sensitization. Imagine you just brought a baby home. By the way, if anyone knows her, and I'm allowed to tell you, Dr. Emily Johnson gave birth to her baby boy on Friday. Everyone's healthy. He's gorgeous. But let's say she's at home. This is her second child, right? She has a baby monitor. When you first bring home the baby, you're a little on edge because you're like, oh my gosh, this human is relying on me to survive, right? And you're going to stare at that baby monitor and things. By the third kid, I can tell you, I've had 3 children, you don't even know where the batteries are. You're just happy that you get to sleep, you know. You're like, from experience, I can relax because in my experience, everything's going to be fine. Now, not everyone's experience is like that, but for usually, the more and more you watch and you notice that you can desensitize yourself over time with experience. And same is true with habituation. Habituating is that reduction in that behavioral response to something. Someone can see a blue light turn on and they might freak out because they're like, holy cow, I see this light. That means that the police are coming or something. And someone else sees a blue light and they have zero reaction because they're like, what? That doesn't mean anything to me. I don't get it. Or they always see a blue light turn on. They're like, yeah, police are always around here. Isn't that nice? Like, it's kind of nice. It's they're watching, and they're helping keep our community safe. I know that some people here on the 4th of July, boom, 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 and maybe they grew up in a different part of the world where bombs happened, and they hear fireworks and it does not bring any kind of positive response. But others, they hear it so much they just sleep right through it because it's not eliciting any kind of emotional response. Tinnitus and habituation go hand in hand. 75 to 80% of all people without my help will successfully habituate to their tinnitus. But there's a 20-25% that are in this category it's categorized as bothersome. It's affecting your life, all that kind of stuff. And I have an image here of a helicopter to remind myself to tell you a story of when I was in college. I was a freshman at the University of Pittsburgh. And my freshman dorm was a part of like 3 buildings that looked like salt and pepper shakers, especially when it rained. And we were across the street from a major medical center, UPMC, University of Pittsburgh Medical Center. And if you're watching The Pit, yes. Anyway, very exciting. So UPMC is a combo. And at the time, even Children's Hospital of Pittsburgh was right there in the corner. And behind that was Presby Hospital, and next to that is Montefiore Hospital. And then we also have like McGee Women's Hospital down the way. We have the VA up on the hill. And this conglomeration of all these hospitals had one helipad. And it was right in the middle. And I didn't think I was ever going to sleep again because we didn't have air conditioning. Windows are open. This is in the early 90s. And anyway, I remember like a month into school, a bunch of us girls are sitting around and someone asked, hey, has anyone heard a helicopter lately? We're like, no, but there's one right now. We were a major medical trauma center, and they would air fly them in from central Pennsylvania, 5 hours away to bring them in for whatnot, including transplants and things. I originally heard the helicopters, didn't think I was going to sleep. Eventually, I habituated. I realized everything was going to be fine. I heard it enough. Here's an example of a little guy who doesn't have a whole lot of experience with the zoo. So let's say he's over at Brookfield Zoo and he is playing on the little climby play thing. He's near the tigers and the lions, and he suddenly hears roar, and his little brain does some calculations and says, oh my gosh, there's a tiger. And his fight or flight system turns on, and he starts crying and he runs to mommy because a tiger's going to eat me, And his brain does not realize or understand what's happening. His mom, however, let's say there's a roar instead of the fireworks. She thinks this through. Her brain says, yes, listen, buddy, we are at Brookfield Zoo. We're not there yet, but we're going to go down the way. And there's these places, cages kind of like things with the bears and the tigers, but they're behind glass and they have their own nice habitat. And yes, they roar, but they're not going to come get us. You can keep playing. It's going to be okay. And she gives him knowledge, and he reduces his response, and he stops crying, and he's okay. So the next time he goes to the zoo, he hears it roar, and he's like, oh, mommy, can we go see the tigers? Same with having explosions, 4th of July. If you understand, you hear boom, 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 then you wake up and you say, oh, that's right. It's 3rd of July. It's the 4th of July. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. My neighbors are probably putting out fireworks. You can calm down and go to sleep. It doesn't have any sort of emotional response. Tinnitus, it happens out of nowhere. Our brain thinks about it, can't figure out. You maybe are already in an edgy state to begin with. Your brain thinks about it some more, still can't figure it out. And we have this cycle of making the tinnitus louder every time you hear it. So perception really is everything. Hearing a snake. If you're on a hike or you're in a hotel room in a sketchy motel and you hear tss, you might have a negative response, because I don't know a whole lot of people that are warm and fuzzy around snakes. But if you heard a fan, like a shh sound, you probably have no response, or you have a really good response because most of us have been sweaty at one point. There was no air conditioning. We finished from a hike, and you go to this front porch and you're like, oh, there's a fan. Most people like oscillating fans. Most people do not like snakes. So if you could recategorize what you're hearing in your ear to something positive, you might not have the same perception or response. So is this glass going to be half full or half empty? You get to choose. So I want you to recategorize your tinnitus. I want to change that emotional response that you have around it so that you have an easier time of dealing with it. So here's an example. Here's Fred. I call him Fred. So the Jasterboffs have this example of a tiger in a room. And let's say you come into my office and I start talking to you. I am teaching you about the neurophysiologic pathway and the response that our brain has with tinnitus. And suddenly, here comes Fred. And Fred just sits down, plops right down his big butt. And you're like, oh. And then you're kind of freaking out. I'm like, no, I'd like you to meet Fred. Don't worry, you're not his type. He's not going to eat you. He hasn't eaten anybody this week, actually. And you're literally panicking. Your whole limbic system's full on, and you're trying to figure out how fast you can get out of here. And I'm like, no, trust me. It's going to be okay. Fred is not going to harm you. And you're like, lady, whatever. And I'm like, please pay attention. So this is the way that the neurophysiologic pathway works in your brain. And I can see you fixating on him. You keep checking in on him. It's kind of like tinnitus. When you first hear it, you can't seem to concentrate because you keep checking in with it. And you're worried and panicked. And you're going, I don't know how much I can live in this state of anxiety, right? But let's say I have you come 3 days a week, and every time you come in, there's Fred. And eventually, after like 6 weeks, you're like, Fred, you're so cute, Fred. Can I pet you? Come here, Fred. You're just the sweetest tiger. Because in your experience, your brain said you were told growing up, tigers eat people. We stay away from tigers. They even eat their owners sometimes, right? And so you've learned, your brain says, we see a tiger, we run away. Same thing can happen with your tinnitus, or the opposite. The more you become friends with it, the more it's around, the more you start to habituate to it, the more you start to realize you had to learn on your own. You can't just listen to me. I can't just say, flip that switch off. Stop it. Stop being upset by your tinnitus. It doesn't work like that. You have to experience it over time to realize, okay, or attend a seminar like this where you realize it's not going to kill me. I'm going to be okay. Now, I will say it would be cruel and unusual if Fred wasn't here all the time. Fred only came in sometimes. You come in 3 days a week for 6 weeks, and he's not here most of the time. But when he does show up, there's a little door and opens and roar, and he's like, heh, 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 and he laughs or whatever, and he almost eats you, but then he decides, no, I won't. And he's like jumping out at you and freaking you out. You are not going to habituate to that tiger, guaranteed. You probably won't even come back, but that would be awful. So I'm leading into something. Stay with me if you're fading. I need Fred to be here all the time for you to realize it's going to be okay. I need your tinnitus to be around all the time for you to start to habituate. And we're going to talk about sound therapy. And remember this, and if you're taking notes, write down the mixing point, the mixing ratio. I need you to, even though you have pleasant sounds, and we're going to talk about different types of sounds, even though you have distracting sounds happening in your world today, I need you to hear your tinnitus just a little bit so that when you have no more noise, it's super quiet in the room, and you're trying to go to sleep, it's not like, roar, your tinnitus is back. And now you're all pissed off and you're angry and you're like, great. There's my tinnitus. I can't even go to sleep. Or even worse, if you actually just dread going to sleep because you're like, yeah, when I go into my room, it's so quiet. I don't want to go there because I hate my tinnitus so much. Okay. So here's an example of how your tinnitus For some people, with or without hearing loss, or just in general, this is a visual example of what's happening with your tinnitus. Sometimes when you go to sleep and it's super quiet in the room, all you can hear is the tinnitus. Or sometimes your hearing has changed so much that there's a section of the piano range that you don't hear normal sounds normally. And so all you hear is the ringing of your ears. So here's a candle. Here's an example, candle in the dark room, right? So first we have a birthday candle, let's say. I don't know if you can see this light, right? It's so bright in here. We have a birthday candle. Can you see the birthday candle? Yes. Is it bothering you? Probably not. It's just a birthday candle. Yep. So let's say I shut off all the lights and it's super dark in here. There's nothing to see but this light. Not a big deal initially, but then over hours, days, weeks, months, if there's nothing else to look at but this candle, you might say, hey, can we blow that out? And I'm like, why? It's just a birthday candle. And you're like, it's driving me batty. And I'm like, but why? And you go, well, it's because there's nothing else to look at. I'm like, okay, what if we could turn on the lights, open up the blinds? Let's say we're at the beach and we can see outside, and oh, there's a boardwalk, and look at these cute little kids, and oh, there's a dolphin, and oh my goodness. I'm like, whoa, come back. What about the birthday candle? And you're like, well, what about it? I'm like, isn't it bothering you? And you're like, no. I'm like, why not? And you're like, because I have all these other things to look at. If you could have sound in your environment plus the tinnitus, even though it's still there's a mixing point, you will find that you aren't as bothered by it anymore. Fill your world today with sounds that you like, okay? And it's going to help you to manage your tinnitus. Create also positive diversions. I teach a doctoral course at Rush, and a couple years ago, a few years ago now, I remember this particular class, I don't know what was up with them. I showed them this picture and I asked, what do you guys see? And they're like, it's cold. That poor bird. And I was like, what? I mean, where I'm from in Pennsylvania, that is a symbol that spring is coming. When I see a cardinal on a cold day, I'm like, yay, finally. That means spring is coming. And all of these students are like, do you guys all see this as negative? They're like, yeah, that poor bird. No. You could choose to see it as a positive beacon of hope, or you can choose to see it as that poor bird that's super cold. Pick the positive. I want you to do evaluation of your tinnitus. How important is it to you? For real? Like, now that you know that it's not going to kill you, it's not even a diagnosis, it's just a symptom that you heard something that maybe has changed. It's something new in your life, but it's not a true diagnosis. Can we look at this and at a 70,000-foot view think, wow, I think I've given it a little too much power. There's a lot of people who have tinnitus. It's not really threatening me. There is an increase in neural activity. That's why it is louder, because we're allowing the brain to focus and fixate on it. So one way that we can start to change this is to push out the negativity. Let's go positive. Stop saying, I hate this noise. And out loud, you can say this, or if there are other people around, at least mentally say this with me. Let's go through all these phrases. My tinnitus cannot harm me. I can learn to ignore my tinnitus. It's okay if my tinnitus doesn't go away. Let's say that again. It's okay if my tinnitus doesn't go away. I do not need to fear my tinnitus. It's okay that it's there. We're going to change your emotional response. Just being here is a huge start. Let's remove the threat. Let's talk about ways to manage your stress. And let's set realistic expectations for how long this can take. By the way, going back to your threat or recategorizing and all that, can you rename your tinnitus? Instead of saying, I hate my tinnitus, can you call it a name? Someone you wouldn't date. Make up a name. You could call your tinnitus Fred. You could call your tinnitus, I don't know, Bertha, Maud, any name of something, someone that if they started texting you and you're like, really, Fred, and they just keep texting you and they want to date you, but you have no reason to date Fred, you're like, okay, Fred, but you feel bad because Fred's like, I don't know, a friend of the family or something like that. You're not going to block Fred, but you just keep seeing these texts and you just like let it go. You're like, oh my gosh, I feel so bad for Fred. It's kind of pathetic, honestly. Like, give that response. Think about, your tinnitus is pathetic, and your brain's going, I don't have time for you. I have so much better things to focus on and to look into and to play than to deal with you. So one of the ways that we help, and we kind of alluded to this earlier, is to work with sound therapy. Just turning on sounds that you like, any sound that doesn't bother you. There are, and I'm going to give you some handouts right now, there are apps that can give you a relief, and you can choose the sounds that you play from them. Resound Relief app is really good. It's free. It's from a hearing aid manufacturer called Resound. There's another hearing aid manufacturer called Widex. They have the Widex Zen tinnitus app, both free. Excellent, by the way. You can download them onto your smartphones or tablets. There's the Calm app, and it's for meditation and sleep. There is a free version, but you can also pay for an annual, which you get more stuff with. And on these apps, you can look for and play with different sounds that you like, and then you could play them just on your phone. You could be wearing headphones. You could have a Bluetooth speaker, and give yourself an ability to have something playing that relieves you from just focusing on the tinnitus while you are living your life. There is, oh, by the way, the Jaster Buffs, that is tinnitus retraining therapy, that they have created this philosophical way of treating tinnitus. Another one is the Progressive Tinnitus Management System that came out of Walter Reed Hospital, and one of my friends was involved in creating it. And it was created for servicemen and women, active duty, as they were coming back to the States from being someplace else where they were exposed to a lot of sounds. They created this program that kind of triages them, and it starts with an educational session in person. And we kind of just went through a lot of that, where we're educating you about tinnitus, where it comes from, the anatomy and physiology of the ear, the neurophysiologic model, all of that, right? And then there's a second session where we're about to start it right now, where we talk about different types of sound therapy, and there's this worksheet. I'm going to give you the worksheet right now if you don't already have it. Oh, here's more music, and here's the sound plan worksheet. So this, I think, is really important for you to have at your bedside table, or maybe in your book bag or your car for the difficult days, because not every day is going to be great. You can do great with your tinnitus, and then suddenly something happens and it flares. And when you're most stressed and you're not doing well with your tinnitus, you might not be very creative, and you can't think of what it is that you're supposed to do. So we're going to fill this out together. So first of all, that first column, let's go back. The first column describes the 3 different types of sounds. There are soothing sounds, background sounds, and interesting sounds. Soothing is like anything you can fall asleep to, or you would go to a spa and you're going to get a massage, and that's the kind of sounds they're playing. Background sounds are things that they're there and it gives your brain something to listen to, but it's not so interesting that it would take you away from being able to read a book or compose an email or something. And then interesting sounds are so interesting that they keep all of your attention, maybe watching a movie, having a conversation with someone, or listening to music that you're singing along with all the words. So I want you to think about what sounds you like. What's a soothing sound to you? What would give you relief? Is it just, a lot of people, just an oscillating fan is really soothing. And then what about background sounds? What kind of sounds do you like? Would it be country music, classical music, smooth jazz, the ball game? anything that doesn't bother you, but doesn't keep a lot of focus to you. And then the interesting sounds, like, have you noticed you don't have tinnitus when you're talking to your spouse? Have you noticed you don't have tinnitus when you're watching certain TV programs? So on this worksheet, let's start with the soothing sounds. Can you write down in the next column one soothing sound, one background sound, and then one interesting sound? The next column, you're going to write down how you're going to access them. So let's say your soothing sound is an oscillating fan. Turn the fan on. How are you going to get that? You turn the fan on. You say the fan. Or maybe it's on an app, fan or ocean waves or whatever it is. How are you going to do it? You're going to play it on your phone, just turn up the volume. Or do you have a Bluetooth speaker? Do you have it connected to a Bluetooth sound pillow? Are you going to connect it to headphones, let's say? Background sound, same thing. You like smooth jazz, let's say. How are you going to play it when you're at work, let's say? Are you going to wear headphones? Does it come out of the speaker of your computer? Do you have a stereo system? Do you ask Alexa to turn it on? Put that down. And then the interesting sounds. Again, what's interesting? Sometimes it might be listening to a podcast, and then you're going to say you're going to wear it through your headphones or that speaker, and that's how different parts of your day you are helping relieve yourself from just focusing on the tinnitus. Because you know what? You don't have time for the tinnitus. You have time for all these other things, and you don't have time to get upset. One study showed, by the way, if you're having a bad day, if you could turn on your favorite song and you listen to it the whole way through twice, you will completely change your day. Your outlook, you're so much happier. If you, I don't know, they haven't done the study. Who would want to participate in this one? But could you listen to a song you definitely do not like twice, and would it ruin your day? Let's not find out. But the power of sound. Lifestyle considerations. How are we doing for time? We got 18 more minutes or less. The way that you attack your day determines more of how things will go. Now, obviously, there's skewing, let's say you break your leg. Just because you're trying to deal with stress management, get sleep, things like that, doesn't mean that that pain's going to go away or you're not going to be, bothered by it. But you could maybe make your outlook a little bit better. So, number one, bring back the joy. If you know the time that the date that tinnitus started and your life has been miserable since then, find the joy. Find one thing that you used to do as a child that you stopped doing because you became an adult. What's that one thing? Coloring? Start coloring again. They have adult coloring books. So relaxing. Did you used to do gymnastics and you really liked just the stretching part? Can you start doing that again? That is a homework task I'm giving you right now, if I haven't already talked to you about that. So let's break down these other parts. Stress management. I want you to look at how you are managing just life in general. Have you found that if you went for a walk, you come back happier because of the endorphins and you're lowering your cortisol and all of that? Do you need to do that more? Should you do a stationary bike, or right now it's warm right now, could we go for a bike ride? Are you a crafty person? Do you like to paint? Does that help you stress? Or are you a builder, a carpenter, things like that? Let's say you're already doing all that. You do it so well, you're so organized that you never take a break. There's a little chair right here, and that's a reminder for you who does not schedule time for you. Schedule the relaxation. Schedule the moment to meditate. Schedule a massage. You know who you are. You're already doing everything, and you're not taking time for you. Maybe you're taking care of the whole family. You're constantly in traffic. You're doing all kinds of stuff. Could you take a break at some point, even like 2 to 3 days a week? If you manage your stress, you can help manage your tinnitus even more. I want you to prepare for things. I want you to make sure that you're not always running late. If it's a stressor to get to work because you forgot that you have to pack your lunch, can you pack your lunch the night before? Can you plan your outfit the night before? Can you moderate your intake of stimulants? little less coffee, a little less alcohol, a little less sodium, just everything in moderation, nothing like huge, right? I want you to start to learn to say no to things that don't bring you joy, if you can. Sometimes they say there's your to-do list and then there's I will not do list. Set boundaries. Prioritize yourself. Try to bring good things into your body and into your life. Say no to the stressors that you don't have to deal with. Show up more positively for those around you. Real quick, here's an aside. I worked at Disney, right? Anyway, so years ago, I took my kids to Walt Disney World, and at the time, my daughter was like 14, my son was like 11 or 12, and my other son was like maybe 5. And we stood in line to see Mickey Mouse. And Mickey was a talking Mickey. They don't have him anymore. It was like very interesting. So we walk in and we see them with another family, and Mickey's talking and asking questions, and the kids are responding, and you take pictures with Mickey and all stuff. It was fabulous, right? So it's our turn, and Mickey turns and he puts his arms out, and you can hear him talking. He goes, "Oh my gosh, you're here. I've been waiting for you." And all 3 kids tackled him, gave him the biggest hug ever. It was like, oh my gosh, like just, I think the middle child started to cry a little bit. Like it was like, oh my gosh, Mickey knows us. Holy cow. And then I was thinking about it, like when I would get home every day, it doesn't matter how tired I was, I would pull in, I would walk in through the garage, come into the kitchen, and there was the dog and my youngest bouncing every day. They were so excited to see me. I was like, thanks, guys. I was like, I remember taking a video once as they walked in, and it was like, holy cow, like they were so excited to see me. But the other 2, especially as they got older, the teenagers, like my daughter starts out, well, if every time I'd see her, I was like afraid to talk to her. She's like, oh, she was moody or whatever. And I would just not really engage with her, or I would expect her to be angry with me, or she was already snappy, so I would be snappy back. And I started to think about the whole Mickey Mouse thing. If I came in every day, like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to see you, yay, and made it weird and funny when I try to give them a hug and stuff like that, eventually they start to expect that. We're like, mom is always happy to see me. When we're stressed and we didn't sleep well and the tinnitus is roaring, if we're angry or we've had too much coffee because we didn't sleep well, and we're going to meet some snappy people because we're snapping at them. Try to be Mickey Mouse. Then by the time you get home, you're less likely to be like, oh, I had a really bad day, I need alcohol. Now you're dehydrated, you try to fall asleep. Alcohol, and especially women, doesn't work well with sleep. And you just want to go to sleep so you can start a new day that the next day is fabulous. If you're struggling with the way that you're reacting to your stress, the tinnitus, or anything in life, you might want to bring in a mental health professional. One that there are many, 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 and we have ones that we can refer you to. And cognitive behavioral therapy is one way that they help you to manage anything that's bothering you. Dr. Jennifer Gans is a psychologist that I know that is in San Francisco, California. And she has an 8-week program that will help you to reduce your tinnitus on the mental health side and to help you to redirect your emotions. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes practice to change your DNA. It takes practice to learn to see the world in a different way, to see your tinnitus in a different light. But she's reminding you of what to do each week. And eventually your DNA changes, your neurophysiologic pathways change. Sleep. You need great sleep. You do. If you can set up your bedroom to be a haven of, it's like, the Mickey Mouse, you're like, oh, I love going to my bedroom. It's a little bit cooler. Maybe there's a fan. Make sure that there is some kind of sound source if you could. If you have a partner that's sleeping with you that doesn't like that same sound, could you have a sound pillow? Try to set yourself up for success. No caffeine for at least maybe 6 hours before you go to bed. Try to limit your alcohol intake. Try not to have blue lights, or try to read a real paper book and not a blue screen on your phone. Have a notepad next to your bed with a pen. or pencil, and if in the middle of the night you wake up and your brain's trying to solve all of the problems of the world, can you just write that down? And we're going to work on that tomorrow. So your brain, or sometimes you remember something and you don't want to forget it. So all night long, you're trying to make sure you don't forget tomorrow. Write it down, let it go. Try not to have a clock or any kind of lights. If you're still struggling with this, this is something that many people struggle with. There are sleep specialists. There are ways to help you to get good night's sleep. Hearing protection. Ask us if you don't have any, but even at Walgreens and things, you can just get simple earplugs. You can wear earmuffs even for when you are exposed to loud sounds. We don't want to trigger the tinnitus to take off and get louder. It is a thing where if you are exposed to really loud sounds, you have a temporary threshold shift in your hearing and your ears can start ringing, like there's an explosion or something. If you are going to a concert, could you bring earplugs? Could you always have something in your car in case you get to Ballydoyle's and there's a live band, but you're there to see your friends and you didn't realize they were going to be so loud? You could put earplugs in and stay longer and not have to worry about your hearing or your tinnitus to shift. Diet. If you look up tinnitus and diet, Dr. Google will tell you all these things. And basically, I've seen people, they come in, they're thin, they're angry, they haven't had sodium, alcohol, caffeine, they haven't had anything good in months, and they're miserable. Everything in moderation. Bring back the joy. Do you really want that chocolate chip cookie with the little sea salt sprinkles on top and that cup of coffee? Why not? You get one life. You deserve to be happy. Eat the food, but don't overdo it, okay? Hearing aids. There are some places, unfortunately, that say that they treat tinnitus, and they have hearing aids that have a noise masker in it. I'm not a big fan. They're not necessarily like even, they couldn't, okay, I'm not going to say anything, but some people wouldn't be able to give this seminar, let's put it that way, and they just want to sell your product. But we have real ear measurement. We use hearing aids. If you have a certain type of hearing loss, we can use audibility, like the candle in the dark room, to give you back the sound that you need, but we need to use the VeriFit to set this up so that we know we're setting the hearing aids right, so that once you're wearing the devices, so many people, the emotions, the tears, all stuff, they're like, how did you do that? Because suddenly they can hear these other sounds and the tinnitus went away while they're wearing their hearing aids, but they still need other coping mechanisms. There is a way to use audibility and hearing devices to help your tinnitus, but not always. It's not a silver bullet, but don't believe someone that just says they're going to turn on some masker in your ears and everything's going to get better. There are ear level sound generators that look like hearing aids, or even just earbuds, AirPod Pros, different headphones that can connect to an app so that you can turn on the sound generator and you can have relief from your tinnitus. You deserve to have relief. Now, the earbuds, headphones, things like that, sometimes in a meeting, people might think you're not taking life seriously, or you're at a restaurant, you're wearing headphones and they think you're not listening to them, when in fact you have something in your ear to try to give you some relaxation from the tinnitus, but they just don't see it. There are ones that we have that are inconspicuous, we'll say. We have the Linear product that is a treatment system that we use with everything, not just by itself, but for certain people. Not everyone qualifies for it, but there is this system where we can stimulate your tongue and you wear your headphones. You listen to some harpsichordy sounds with swishing of water while stimulating the tongue. This system came to the market, I think, actually, gosh, life has gone really fast. I think it was like 4 years ago in May that the FDA approved it in the United States. We were, I think, the 13th clinic in the nation to use them. We were the first ones for at least a year, the only ones in Illinois that were fitting people with Linear. And we've had crazy good success, but it's not for everyone. And we're not like some places where they're just going to say, yeah, just here, let's fit you with this thing and everything will get better. It doesn't work like that. It's like having a really good chef that has the recipe, and it's not just the fresh fish, it's how they prepared it. And like this educational session is very, very important in the treatment of tinnitus. And there are medical contraindications. You can't have a pacemaker, you can't be pregnant, you can't have an implantable device, you can't have tongue piercings or open sores in your mouth, and certain types of hearing loss wouldn't be appropriate for, but it is something that we offer. And it by the way, you can't demo it and then it's just, they say it's all or nothing. Once you start the treatment, you put the tongue tip on your mouth, it's yours. So I believe it's somewhere around $3,900, which includes your sessions with it and your follow-ups with the audiologist, where other places it might be cheaper, but they are charging you for every single visit that you have. So at this point, 5 minutes to spare. You have 3 choices. You can take all this information. I will never see you again. I wish you the best of luck. If you know of anyone that needs my services, send them our way. We get referrals from Julie, University of Chicago, Northwestern, Loyola, ENTs, otologists, and audiologists refer to us all the time. We would love a referral for anyone that's struggling. If you found that you have questions about anything that you heard today, you can follow up with me or any of the other audiologists, and we can answer your questions via just a telehealth conversation. Or you can come in for a 2-hour diagnostic evaluation, and we go over your results and then give you options for your treatment. I hope that this has been helpful. If you need anything, let me know. Enjoy the beautiful weather. Now is a great time to start treating your tinnitus because there's a lot of good things going on, and you can go for those walks, get great night's sleep, and have a wonderful day. Thank you.